I'm garden artisan Scott Cohen from the green scene, and I have a great story to tell you about some of the characters that we worked with over the past. You know, we have a great in-house staff. We've got over 48 people on staff full-time, but we also need subcontractors, and you need guys that are really, really top in their trade, quality guys that you can work with. Now, one of the guys that we work with, though, when we're doing something a little bit more artsy, is the rock dude, okay? And that's what we call him. And he reminds me of Spicoli, okay? From Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You remember that movie? Like, all right, dude, I can fix it. No, my dad's a TV repairman, all right.
Hey, don't worry about it. My dad's a TV repairman. He'll fix it.
All right, dude. So, his name's Brian, I guess we can say that. And Brian, I've worked with him for over 20 years. And when we were first working together, Brian actually he had taken an old Mercedes diesel station wagon and converted it to run on fry oil, okay? And so he would go by various Chinese restaurants and pick up their fry oil and French fry oil and fish oil and this sort of thing. And Brian would show up to the job site in this car, kaboom, and it just smoke would be pouring out the back. It smelled like fried fish and French fries. And Brian worked most of the time with his dog. His dog would come out with him, and he would come out, and I would have to explain ahead of time to clients, because Green Scene's a very professional company. But when it comes to some of these really artsy things, you need to work with some pretty interesting characters at times. And Brian certainly falls into that category. Now, of course, this was before cannabis was legal, but Brian is definitely a big fan of cannabis. And I was certain he was on the job site because he would leave me a roach at the bottom of a pool to let me know he'd been there, okay? But Brian carves rocks. And he carves rocks and he carves concrete to look like anything you can imagine. I remember on one project, I had a client, we were working with somebody who was from Disney. They were part of the Imagineering group. So they were really expecting a very high attention to detail with our creative work. What I designed for them was a pond that had a bridge that crossed over the river, the stream that spilled into the pond, and over to a fire pit. The concept behind the fire pit was it looked like an old charred out tree trunk. And so I met Brian at the job site, and they were sitting there, and he's like, I don't understand. I just don't get it. Why is there a tree trunk in the backyard? And I realized as an artist, Brian needed his motivation, needed to understand the story. So I explained to Brian there had been a giant Sequoia tree growing in this specimen, beautiful specimen in the forest, but there had been a lightning storm, and it struck the tree, and the tree burned down to the ground. And all that was left was 12 to 18 inches of charred out tree trunk with glowing embers in the center. He's like, all right, dude, I can do it. And he sat down with his dog, and I'm not sure how many joints it took to finish the project, but 2.5 days worth of just sitting there, and he hand carved that concrete fire pit, and when we were done, it looked exactly like a charred out tree trunk that had burned down in the forest. He's a really talented fellow. In fact, he's done a lot of work for me at my own home. He's done work for me on rock features and waterfalls, on our Badass project, on a 65-foot slide and waterfalls. I've worked with him on and off. Did an Indian zoo exhibit inside someone's home where the client had a bronze sculpture. We actually created something that looked like it was from that era with water weeping down the stone. And it was authentic to the indigenous Indian group that we were trying to replicate. He's a little frustrating for me to work with because I like to work with a Monday through Friday schedule. Like you get up in the morning, you go to work, and then at the end of the day, you're done with your job. And Brian likes to work with hey, you know, when I was in the mood for it, it seemed appropriate to show up and do it. And so it's a little challenging, and I'll sometimes tell clients ahead of time, look, I got 2 ways to do this. I can get it done fast and quality, but it may not be as artistic. Or if you're patient, we can take a little longer, may not be as consistent, but the work we do will be authentic and it'll look exactly like it was originally intended to look. It'll be artwork when it's done. Brian did all the rock work at my pond, and he did all the rock work on the Badass backyard. So the way we build artificial stone in the field, it's very hard, of course, to bring in large boulders and actually waterproof them. In fact, when we're handling real boulders, we never handle anything larger than 2 people can manage. Strong people, but people just the same. So if we want something a little larger in scale and we want it to be waterproof properly, we'll cast it in place out of concrete. We'll usually do that with pneumatically applied concrete like shotcrete or gunite. We'll create a cage on site, reinforced with steel, and bend that and shape it to look roughly like the boulders we're looking for. We apply the concrete, and while the concrete's wet, we'll texture it so that we can get some of the detail that we're looking for. We have a variety of different mats that are made from actual boulders. So we'll take a boulder that's got some interesting texture on it and apply these coats of rubber to it, and then pull that off, and then use that rubber later to texture stamp the boulders themselves. We have a whole series of stamp kits and floppy mats that we use that are from real boulders and that differentiate our work from something standard. The rocks on this water feature here are all solid concrete. We built planters into the feature. There's 20 misters built into the rock work. I have tillandsias, bromeliads, and a variety of epiphyliums. And as a member of the Epiphylium Society of America, I have 200 different varieties of strap cactus and tropical flowering plants.